There is one political line, okay? Are you ready? Egalitarian and unegalitarian. That's it. That is the only relevant political distinction, period. None of this socially liberal, fiscally conservative. There's no such thing. This distinction without a difference has harmed our political discourse. Allow me to elaborate. Everyone's political and economic beliefs stem fundamentally from their social beliefs. After all, social beliefs they constitute how we feel about humans. But politics and political economy and economic systems, these deal in humans. These are ways of affecting the lives of humans. So a political and economic system are always going to be subservient to one's social values. Period. It's that simple. How do I demonstrate this? Well, define egalitarian because I'm dumb, please? Yeah. Egalitarian just means you want people to be equal and treated equally and live lives unencumbered by inequality. It's that simple. Anti-egalitarian means you don't give a fuck. You think some people are better than others, or you don't care if some people get easier lives or suffer discrimination while others don't. Now, how can I demonstrate this? Okay? Well, because all graphs like these are going to be contextual, there's no such thing as a truly center point line, okay? There's no such thing as like an actual political center. It's always contextual. It's always an Overton window derivation. But let's set a midpoint. Liberal capitalism, okay? This is what Adam Smith wanted. Capitalism, free trade, meant to serve the interests of the political constituency, to represent them, to allow them economic freedom. Let's set this at the middle, okay? Hypothetically. It could be over here. It could be all the way on the left if we're talking like feudalism and monarchy and mercantilism and imperialism back here. And it could be all the way over on the right if we're discussing like different branches of anarchism over here. But for this, let's just say it's in the center, okay? So, where does anarcho-capitalism fit? We all know anarcho-capitalism, don't we? It's a fundamentally contradictory ideology, best described as hyper-libertarianism or hyper-unregulated capitalism. The idea being that there's essentially no government control or regulation, not even a state, really, just corporations, freedom of association, and autonomous trade. This is a far-right ideology. Over here. Do you know why? Well, there's no state. There's no state oppression at all. Because the systems that would be reinforced through anarcho-capitalism, the ways in which that society would express itself would lead to massive, overwhelming inequality. Not just economic either. I mean, imagine capitalism with no regulations. You remember the robber barons of the Gilded Era? Unfathomably wealthy people buying politicians and forcing their workers 14-hour workdays, no breaks, no windows, chained to their chairs. We know this. This happened recently. Not only would there be economic divide, without a state, how could we prevent individual constituencies from ganging up on one another? Demographics. What about racial warfare? What about the subservience of women? How could these things be prevented? What if you have a society which is 90% Sunni and 10% Shiite, I always forget how to, Shia, yeah. 10% Shia, what if this society was anarcho-capitalist? There would be no civic protections whatsoever for the minority. And if the majority is bigoted, fuck. What are you going to do? What if a bunch of white people in an anarcho-capitalist society want to buy up like a whole city and just deny it to black people? Like you don't want black people to live. Oh no, fuck you. You don't want to work? No, fuck you. No living, no working there, no black people. All white people. No Hispanics or Asians either. This is fundamentally anti-egalitarian. Is it freedom? Well, in a sense, sure, but it leaves you up to the unfreedom, the restrictions of natural hierarchy. Is somebody truly free when they're let out into the wild, free of society in a stateless territory? Well, sure. Yeah, I mean, they can do literally whatever. They can run around naked, they can shit and piss, they can fuck a tree, they can fuck animals. But are they free from nature? Are they free from death, starvation, disease? No. That person, I'd wager, would actually be more free if they lived in a society like ours. Because I have to follow laws, granted, but in spite of that, I get to live free of a great deal of natural inequality. Though there are people who disagree with me, I am free from the threat of them punching me in the face or shooting me because such things are illegal. Though I do not farm my own food, I am free from the threat of starvation because I can buy it. And I live in a society which is set up in a way that allows me to buy food without having to physically raise it or kill it myself. That's really cool. Anarcho-capitalism, by nature of its design, eschews protections for the minority and allows relentless, unending bigotry, intolerance, and inequality directed against social minorities. And for that reason, it is a far-right political ideology. The economics don't matter. The economics exist to serve the social structure. It's all about the fucking pyramid. Whether it's a flat pyramid like this, like an anarchist pyramid right here, where the vast majority of people are workers, and then maybe at the top we have like some representative workers who run syndicates, or like they democratically and they can be elected, but it's a very flat hierarchy. Very few hierarchies, very cool. Okay? And maybe you want this, anarcho-capitalist, or there's differing tiers, the hyper wealthy and the bodyguards and the stooges they control, and then the broader population of people who work in privileged circumstances atop the fucking mountains of people. The mountains of people who barely able to survive in such a system with no protections whatsoever from a state or government. It's all about the triangle. When Ronald Reagan removes protections from corporations, we're moving further to the right because we're increasing inequality. It has nothing to do with government spending or the size of the state. Republicans consistently increase the deficit when they come in. It has nothing to do with the size of the state. Why do Republicans consistently support increasing the size of the fucking military, but insist against welfare? Well, because the military, when expanded, allows us to increase our level of influence, both militaristic and democratic, on other countries, whereas welfare lifts up the bottom echelons of the population and allows them more time and money and freedom with which to live their lives in an egalitarian sense. So reducing the size of the government can, and very often does, make you further right-leaning, not because you're reducing the size of the government, but because you're reducing protections on minorities. Anarchism, true anarchism, in spite of the fact that it is by necessity a stateless, a stateless society designed to minimize hierarchy, is far left. How can it be far left when it entails a destruction of the state? I thought far left meant bigger government. Well, no. Anarchism is literally about destroying hierarchy. That's as close as you can get to egalitarianism. Same with communism. Even if you go with full tilt, like Marxist-Leninist state capitalist communism, or I'm an anarchist, I don't have particularly fond opinions of state, like authoritarian leftism, but even if we're to go to that point, even if we go there, in spite of the totality of the state, or the government, I suppose, weighing down on the citizenry, it is still a far left ideology because the state exists to mandate the equality of the constituent population. This is the only relevant political graph. That's it. This is it. Now, don't get me wrong. Actual politics isn't just a line. It's not even a square. Actual politics isn't even a fucking cube with multi-axes and shit and fucking space and politics is really complicated, okay? So fucking complicated. But generally speaking, people's political, economic beliefs are going to be motivated by their social beliefs, which is why, and this is just a little bit of a coincidence here, why there's so much cohabitation between, say, racism and states' rights. If you made slavery a matter of states' rights, for example, statistically speaking, some states are going to choose to keep slavery, which is more states keeping slavery than the federal government abolishing all of it would lead to. This is why there are so many people who claim to be anti-authoritarian, anti-big government, but will unironically defend bathroom bills to determine the state birth gender of someone, to determine what bathroom they can go into. These conservatives, these small government conservatives, literally supported state-mandated segregation with separate facilities and different schools and courthouses spread out depending on the race of the person using them. These are the small government people. Why? It doesn't make sense. Unless this whole small government bullshit is just a smokescreen for the actual goal. Building the triangle. I'm getting close to rambling here, but I really do want to emphasize this point. If you hear a person describe their political ideology, the politics and the economics of it are fundamentally irrelevant. What you need to think in your head is, what are the practical social consequences of the implementation of that ideology? Anarcho-capitalism? Oh, you mean an abolishment of all state protections of minorities and a return to guilt, robber baron tier capitalism, but worse? I wonder what kind of consequences that'll have in the most disadvantaged portions of the society. Oh, a Nazbol, a Nazi socialist who wants for the workers to seize the means of production as long as they're Aryan, and then kick all the brown people out, and then live as an isolationist socialist state where only white people are given privileged economic. Well, interesting. What are the social consequences of this social structure? Okay, all right, sure, cool, all right. Positions on welfare. Well, you just approved trillions of dollars in government spending and increased the deficit through a tax cut. Why are you so opposed to a government policy that has been proven to have good economic outcomes and lifts people out of the misery of poverty? Well, would it be because tax cuts benefit the rich and the military benefits the political and economic interests of the country, but welfare doesn't? It just helps poor people? This is what matters. Never be deceived by someone's jargon. Fascists are quite good at this.